Everyone knows that the right star can make or break a movie, and sometimes that's literally true too. Here are some of the actors who have single-handedly doomed a project to development hell. After Pulp Fiction saved John Travolta's failing career, the actor went through a renaissance for the ages, eventually affording him the kind of success that most actors barely see in their lives.
We happy?
Yeah, we happy.
He was having such good fortune, in fact, that in 1996 he felt emboldened to walk away from a potential $17 million paycheck and risk a huge lawsuit in the process. The movie in question was The Double, to be directed by Roman Polanski, based on the 1847 Dostoevsky novel of the same name. Creative differences between Travolta and Polanski flared up from the very first table read. Travolta later told Paris Match, "Our views on the film were completely different. I wanted to do a dramatic comedy. He wanted a cartoon. At the first reading, Roman didn't like my acting. He told me I was bad and showed me what I should do." The last straw for Travolta was that Polanski decided to add a nude scene for no apparent reason. This caused Travolta to quit the movie, which led to production companies Mandalay Entertainment and Light Offer suing him. Travolta countersued, saying that the company failed to honor a deal for him to star in Donnie Brasco, which was finally released in 1997. The Double, meanwhile, was never made. The suit was eventually settled out of court. Arrive Alive seemed to have everything going for it when it was first announced in 1989. A script from the duo who penned the subversive holiday hit Scrooged, the director of National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, and top lead talents in Willem Dafoe and Joan Cusack. It was to be a noir rom-com hybrid starring Dafoe as a detective and Cusack as his exotic dancer female foil. But to make the obvious joke, Arrive Alive did anything but that. It seems that Paramount ordered the movie based on the talent and premise alone, and wasn't fully prepared for how dark the script turned out to be. It was so dark, in fact, that Bill Murray, of all people, turned down a lead role due to the excessive violence in the script. When the studio saw the dailies from the first few weeks of filming, it demanded that slapstick comedy elements were added to the movie to liven things up. Murray would have pulled that off just fine. Dafoe, however, wasn't confident in his slapstick comedy abilities and subsequently quit the movie. Only 18 days into shooting, production on Arrive Alive was shut down, and when a replacement for Dafoe couldn't be found, it was canned for good. One of Will Ferrell's breakout roles on Saturday Night Live was his portrayal of President George W. Bush, which became the basis of his Broadway show, You're Welcome, America.
I did it for him because he would have done it for him. It's called bipartisanship.
Given his long-term success playing an exaggerated version of a former president, it might not be a surprise that Ferrell considered doing it again in 2016. However, things were a little bit different for Reagan, a movie Ferrell was announced to be producing as well as starring in. The film was set to see Ferrell play the US president throughout the bulk of the 1980s. It was also revealed that the movie would have seen Ferrell perform as Reagan in the later years of his presidency, seemingly poking fun at the Alzheimer's-induced dementia that Reagan was beginning to suffer around the time. This sparked a significant backlash from not only the Alzheimer's Association, but also Reagan's children, Michael Reagan and Patty Davis. Davis took things further when she penned an open letter via the Daily Beast, in which she severely condemned the planned movie for making light of the disease. She wrote, "Perhaps you have managed to retain some ignorance about Alzheimer's and other versions of dementia. Perhaps if you knew more, you would not find the subject humorous." Unsurprisingly, Ferrell dropped out of Reagan just 2 days after the ill-advised film was announced. The movie was canned soon after. Tony Jaa had been kicking around for a while before 2003's Ong Bak Muay Thai Warrior put him on the map. In addition to helping introduce both the art of Muay Thai as well as Thai cinema to the world, the biggest impact of Ong Bak was arguably the fact that it announced the arrival of film's newest action star. However, it would be over a decade before Jaa made his Hollywood debut in 2015's Furious 7. Going to Hollywood was a childhood dream, the actor told reporters at the time. It was in making the leap to this uber-popular action franchise that Jaa reportedly got another movie cancelled. At the time, Jaa had already been working on a movie called A Man Will Rise with a Thailand-based production company. The company claimed that Jaa breached his contract by leaving the film with only 20% of it completed, insisting that the actor give back the money already paid to him for the project. The film was never finished, while Jaa went on to star in several action movies in the years that followed. According to Essentially Sports, Arnold Schwarzenegger pioneered the comic book superhero physique in Hollywood. So why then has he barely been involved with comic book adaptations over the years? Well, if things had gone a little differently, his wild role as Mr. Freeze in 1997's Batman and Robin wouldn't have been his first attempt to bring a comic book character to the big screen.
Very nice.
Back in the 1980s, Stephen E. D'Souza, who penned the screenplays for the Schwarzenegger films Commando and The Running Man, was all lined up to work with the actor a third time. Sergeant Rock was based on the DC Comics World War II soldier character of the same name, and D'Souza had Arnie in mind for the title role. The project would have also reteamed Schwarzenegger with his Predator director John McTiernan. The film collapsed, however, when Schwarzenegger was informed that he'd have to travel to Europe for the shoot. He had been assured that production would take place in the US, so he walked, and Sergeant Rock was no more. Years later, D'Souza told Den of Geek, "The fact that Arnold didn't make the movie and didn't get sued makes me think that somewhere there must have been a binding memo from a lawyer or from within the studio confirming that he was promised a US shoot. So that's why the movie came to a complete halt." Cycling website Podium Cafe refers to the yellow jersey as the cycling film Hollywood loved but could never make. Only cycling enthusiasts are likely to have ever heard of it, and since nobody has ever managed to actually produce a film version of Ralph Hearn's 1973 novel, The Yellow Jersey, it's likely to stay that way for a long time. The film rights to the novel were first acquired the year it was released, but it wasn't until 1983 that any measurable work on the film had really gotten underway. At that point, however, The Yellow Jersey finally found its leading actor, Dustin Hoffman. At the time, Hoffman said, "The book is about the last moment of your youth, and I think that's the way I feel now about myself. Actors say, if I'm going to die, let it be on stage. This guy says, if I'm going to die, let it be while trying to make this curve. I think I can relate to that." 3 years and over $1 million later, not a single frame of film had been shot. When director Michael Cimino left the project, producers suggested multiple replacements, none of whom Hoffman liked. Hoffman eventually got fed up with the troubled production and walked away, sealing the film's fate for good. When the circumstances of Bruce Willis's retirement became clear, most people stopped giving the actor a hard time for pumping out so many forgettable direct-to-video flicks in the 2010s and early 2020s.
You look so stupid with that pen in your neck.
Given the reason he wanted to make so many movies, it was obviously in his best interest to tough it out and actually finish any film that he started. So it would definitely be saying something for there to have been a film during that period that Willis actually decided to walk away from. That movie was called Wake, and it entered production in 2015, with Willis attached to star. The action thriller had only been in production for 10 days, and financing issues led to a quick halt on filming. That halt was only supposed to last about a month, but then the proposed restart date came and went without any positive news. Eventually, it seems Willis got tired of waiting for the movie to find its money and moved on to other projects, as did director John Pogue. Without Willis attached, Wake was less likely than ever to get the financing it needed to resume production, and unsurprisingly, it never did. If the director of 10 Things I Hate About You made another film called 10 Things I Hate About Life, you'd probably assume it was going to be a sequel. And you'd be wrong. In fact, other than them both being rom-coms, there seems to be very little that tied you to life other than Gil Younger and producer Andrew Lazar. 10 Things I Hate About Life actually promised to be as dark as its title suggested. It was going to be about two people who meet while trying to take their own lives before subsequently embarking on a romance. It definitely would have been interesting to see a rom-com built on such a downer premise, but alas, it doesn't look like we ever will. Production got underway in 2012, but the double dose of corporate drama and the pregnancy of star Evan Rachel Wood put filming on hiatus. By 2014, news had begun to circulate that Wood was refusing to return to the production, with the actor claiming that she'd yet to be paid for the work she'd already done. This was in response to producers suing Wood for $30 million for a breach of contract for not showing up, a move that her legal team called preposterous. As a result of Wood's departure and all that legal wrangling, the movie quickly fell apart. John Wayne did a few comedies in his time, but he was never willing to poke fun at the film genre that made him famous, and this once led to a film being shut down. When Peter Bogdanovich was first getting started as a filmmaker, he teamed with novelist Larry McMurtry to write a script about the final days of the American West. The movie, to be titled Streets of Laredo, would have taken playful jabs at the various tropes of the genre, which is the part that John Wayne took umbrage with. Don Graham, a professor of English at the University of Texas at Austin, later told Texas Monthly, John Wayne wasn't going to lend himself to a total critique of the genre he'd been working in for 40 years. He wasn't going to make Blazing Saddles.
And no sidewinding, bushwhacking, hornswoggling, crocker is gonna roll away, biscuit cutter.
When Wayne bowed out of the film, it all fell apart. It had been written with Wayne in mind after all. McMurtry would later dust off some of the ideas he had devised for Streets of Laredo for his Pulitzer Prize-winning novel Lonesome Dove, which was adapted into a hit miniseries starring Robert Duvall. The book itself eventually received a follow-up called, you guessed it, Streets of Laredo. Winona Ryder's career was in a weird spot when the new millennium rolled around. She might have just come off her role in the buzzy Girl Interrupted in 1999, but 2000's Lost Souls was savaged by critics. 2001, meanwhile, saw her receive her infamous conviction for shoplifting, as well as her somewhat mysterious exit from an indie drama called Lily and the Secret Planting. The movie was set to star Ryder as an introvert who develops a relationship with the assistant of a plant nursery owner. With a proposed budget of only $5 million, it was definitely going to be a scaled-down production, and Ryder was very excited about the project. However, she ended up getting extremely sick on set. Only a month after her involvement was announced, news stories emerged suggesting that Ryder had quit the film as a result of her recovery from her sickness. Initially, it was suggested that Kate Winslet had been asked to take over from Ryder, but that never came to fruition, and without a big-name lead attached, Lily and the Secret Planting withered and died.